let's look to Ma'aser Korbanos, the 10th parak. Talking about the 9th over here. There was something I had mentioned before about the time limit for eating the korbanos, right? It's in the 8th halacha over here. Right? Really, you could eat them until dawn, right? It's like Kriyas Shema. The Chacham said that they should not be eaten beyond the chatzos. So the question was, what about that's l'chadchila? What about b'diavad? So that's a machlokas, right? So there are ones who want to say, like I mentioned, Makbili says that it seems Kriyas Shema b'diavad after chatzos you should still say it, but here there is no b'diavad. It's l'chadchila, okay? And then he brings out a proof here from the Parish of Mishnayos to what's it? No, it's in Korban Pesach. Sorry, in Korban Pesach. It says in the 8th parak there, 15th halacha, and also Pshulei Mukdashim Vav Yud Beis. I wrote myself a note. Sham Mivuar She'ain. Hold on 1 second. She'ain Sharuth Lochlo Achar Chatzos. There is no efsharus to eat this korban after chatzos once it's possible. Take korban pesach for example. It says in Psachim Yud Tes, right? Mishnah Achrona. It says I'll read the Mishnah. HaPesach Achar Chatzos B'Tames Hayadayim. Chazal made a gzera that the meat of the Passover offering contaminates your hands from touching it. Whatever Tumas Hayadayim is always an Isser D'Rabbanan. There's no such thing as Tumas Hayadayim according to the Torah. Whenever we have Tumas Hayadayim, it's a takana d'Rabbanan that you have to do Netilas Yadayim or sometimes Tevilas Yadayim, correct? So Chazal basically said, not only can you eat Korban Pesach, it's going to make your hands tummy.
Right.
So if you have tummy hands, what can't you do, for example? Well, you certainly can't daven and eat bread, but you can't touch other kachim and truma. Okay, Tumas Yadayim is for kachim and truma. That's the nafkamina. So this is a punishment. Let's say the punishment is like a knas. So mashma that you can't eat the korban pesach after chatzos. There's no but I should have eaten it before chatzos laharchik min avera, but if it means eating korban pesach at 1 o'clock in the morning or not eating korban pesach at all, right? So I should be allowed to do it just like Kriyas Shema. I should have said it before. No, the Kamash Milan says Hainu she what did I say? Shabasar pasul lagamri. So Rabbanan, basically they're just qualifying the Korban Pesach until this point. I should have written in the notes a little bit bigger. I don't know how I wrote something that was so small that I have trouble reading my own handwriting. Okay, fine. So that's an important point to know. What does it say here? Who can eat the korbanos? Whether it's kache kachim, kache kalim, it has to be people who are ritually pure. And also that they are circumcised. Hamulin. If they're women, there's no issue about this, but they have to be circumcised if they're men, or I guess hermaphrodites. Let's say a person has now purified himself, and the stars have come out on the next night. So that's when the purification kicks in. But he didn't bring his kapara, whatever korban he also had to bring as part of that purification process. We saw this is in Milchusarei kapara. We saw it last week. So he can't eat kachim. So this sometimes will be Korban Pesach people. We could have had a situation this year that everybody who went to mikvah the day of Erev Pesach would become tahor when the stars would come out, and then could sit down at the seder. But he wouldn't be able to eat the Korban Pesach if he's mechusar kapara. That means any woman who had given birth, for example, she had to bring a korban. Any person who's ever been a zav or a mitzorah, gerim, right? The ger has to bring his korban also in order to complete his gerus. So in order to eat a korban pesach, he'd have to bring this korban. Okay. Well, tumtum asur leachol bekodashim lefishu safek orel. A tumtum is you don't know what he is, male or female, and he might be an orel, but there's no way you can circumcise him because so it's kind of weird. Like where's the orla? But if it is there, you don't know how to get it off. So he's going to stay an orel his life. He has a din of an orel, and therefore he cannot eat any korban, let alone the korban pesach. You're going to say, wait a minute. Arelim are not supposed to eat any kachim, and then the mitzvah is doubled, and Korban Pesach should not be eaten by anybody who's an Orel also, right? Mm-hmm. We've seen that with Korban Pesach. There's a lot of mitzvahs that apply to all the korbanos generally, and then they were reiterated concerning Korban Pesach. Why? What's the rule?
Because you'd think that because Korban Pesach is different, that it doesn't apply.
Yeah, and how's Korban Pesach different?
the brachot deal is with this in the
Korban Pesach is the Korban, like Rav Hirsch says, and this is the thesis of the Haggadah. Korban Pesach is the Korban that turns everybody into a Kohen. Okay, it makes the family into a family of priests. It makes the house into a mikdash. Okay? So it's a whole different class unto itself. The androgynous, Yereli Shehu Ochel B'Kodashim Kalim. Androgynous, as long as he is circumcised, where his zachrus is, so he could eat Kodashim Kalim, including Korban Pesach and the Todah and everything else. Very interesting. Mutter le'achol etz hakodshim b'chol ma'achol. And if you say that not nish, it's ma'achol. You could eat Korban Pesach, the kodshim, any way they want. Not Korban Pesach. Korban Pesach has to be specifically what? Roasted. This one's afil kohanim muterim lechol chelkam. The kohanim can do whatever they want with their priestly portions. Bein mikodshim kalim, bein mikodshi kodshim. Whether most holy sacrifices, less holy ones. B'chol ma'achol. Any way they want. L'shanoth b'achilathon. What is l'shanoth? Any other want and l'shanoth. What does l'shanoth mean?
L'shanoth change.
They could change it. No, or this is one day they cook the korban this way, one day they cook it that way. And they could recook it. They could roast it, they could stew it, or they could pot roast it. Okay. One is basically they argue out what's the deepness of cooking. There's one cooking where you just dunk the whole thing in water, right? So it's boiled like in a soup. And then there's meat you could just put in a pot with some salt and it stews in its own juices, right? That's like a pot roast. And then there's actual roasting. They could barbecue it. Roasting something in the oven is different than barbecuing something. You're just putting it directly on coals. They could put spices or condiments that come from the chulin. By the way, like I said, Korban Pesach is even holier. Korban Pesach is restricted. The fact that Korban Pesach has an isser, that it has to be roasted and it cannot be eaten in any other way. Right, that's more unique. It's more machmir in this case than all let's say the kachim like the chatas and the yasham. But they should not put truma into it. Avalo tivle truma. They shouldn't take some sort of way to spice up the korban. Use truma. Shelo yaviyotha truma lidei psul, because then they're going to ruin the truma. How are they going to ruin the truma? What does it mean ruin the truma? Here's what it means. Normally, let's say the kohen has tomatoes. The Kohen has grapes. Mm-hmm. The Kohen takes his tomatoes. That's a little bit iffy. Does truma apply to tomatoes? Well, they're a vegetable. They're not one of shivs aminim. That's why I then said grapes. Everybody agrees that one has to take truma from his grapes. So the Kohen has wine made from grapes. He has some aged wine, sherry wine. That's not the kind he's going to drink, but instead it's good for making gravy, right? Cooking wine. So the Kohen has truma cooking wine. His truma cooking wine is not from Shavias. So that's staying in his barrel, or it's staying in his bottle in the refrigerator year after year. He uses just a little bit. It's actually good with age, right? Kohen is cooking wine. That truma has no expiration date on it, ritually speaking, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no endpoint where the Kohen will have to do biur truma. However, the korban that is being cooked in the Beis HaMikdash today, if it's kachim, by tomorrow, sometime tomorrow, that meat will be puzzle. It's no sar. If the Kohen flavors, he cooks this piece of meat, the chazer or the shok, whatever it is, he cooks it in this truma wine. So now that there's truma in here, he's eating truma, okay, and he's eating basar kachim. It'll all expire, including the truma wine that's in there, whenever the kachim become nosar. So he's basically going to be ruining his truma. There's going to be some truma here that's at risk of, oops, he didn't finish it by the time limit. So now this truma will have to be disposed of because there's kachim in it. So that's a problem. We also said, mutaroth. If there's bones left over, remember they're dealing with animals here. So sometimes meat is cooked on the bone. What do you do with the bones after from the korbanos? The kohanim eat the meat. What do they do with the bones?
They burn it. They
have no kedusha. I mean the gizbar can sell them, but it's not like me'ilah. Okay, the kohanim could take the bones, and it's like the skins. The skins also are not me'ilah; they're possession of the kohanim.
Right.
So they used to make kalim out of bones. Remember the Indians on the plains with the buffalo, right? The skin is used. Everything's used. I don't know.
An advertisement?
No, I don't. What, an advertisement for what? For Native American usage of buffaloes?
No. On the plains, I feel like there's a.
No, it was just that's the way they used to teach it in social studies. Remember? Okay. They romanticized the Native Americans who would live off the land, right?
All right.
Okay, so that was the thing they did. Okay, I don't know how historically accurate it is, That's what they wanted us to believe as
Noble
children.
savage.
Well,
Noble savage.
the noble savage. Until you get to like the Aztecs, the Incas, and the Mayans, and you realize about the Aztecs. It's also like, yeah, okay. No, I'm sure there were some ones. There were some tribes that got along with the white man, especially with the British. Some tribes played ball and some tribes didn't. Okay, there you go. A very complicated history of which I have no particular opinion thereon. I don't really care, but my point is that apparently they knew how to use the buffalo, at least according to what they taught us. So nowadays they do not use bone to make anything. Instead, what do they do? The slaughterhouses and other places. We basically, when we eat any type of food, we just throw away the bones, right? But what they used to do with bones, or the slaughterhouses, the extra bones that they have when they fillet things, what do they do with the bone? Because no one's making kalim out of it.
Fertilizer.
Yes, it's it. It's called bone meal. Okay. Yeah. The slaughterhouses have a lot of blood. So there's some blood that actually they could actually catch. Jews are bidden to not use the blood whatsoever, not consume the blood. That's forbidden. So you could catch all the blood and you could use something, dried into cakes, and it's called blood meal. And that's used as fertilizer. It's high in iron. And they also use bone to make something called bone meal. They grind up the bones, and that's also used as fertilizer. So that's mostly what the blood and bones are used for nowadays. And they're not making a kalim out of it. But in the olden days, you made things out of bone. Okay, you can make instruments out of bone. By instruments, I mean musical instruments. Certain long bones are better instruments, and bows and stuff like that. The most basic thing you can make out of a bone is a club. Let's say they don't have much korban to eat. The Kohanim are basically getting the Kohanim on duty. There's not much korban going around today, but imagine Shabbos. How much edible meat is there in the Beis Hamikdash on a given Shabbos? If all they bring is korban tamid and korban musaf, then there is no thing for the Kohanim to eat because there's no chatos, there's no asham, then no one's bringing the darim and the davos, and regular people aren't bringing their korbanos. Yeah, it's 4 olas basically. The minimum on a Shabbos. So there's kates mizbeach, let's say, but even then, those are olas. So in order for the Kohanim to have something to eat, it has to either be a moed, where there's a chatos going around, and that's just a goat. Every moed has one chatos, right? Whether it's Rosh Chodesh or any of the Yom Tovim or Chol Moed, what is it? One he-goat as chatos. And if it's Yom Kippur, there's basically 2 of those. And they eat them after Yom Kippur. So how much meat is that? 1 goat for all the Kohanim on duty?
Well, there's also the shlamim. The shlamim
on Yom Kippur?
No, not on Yom Kippur, but the rest of
someone has to bring
food.
I'm saying that someone has to bring a shlamim. In order for the Kohanim to have food, someone has to bring a korban in order to get around. So achila muetas is, let's say, Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, a lot of olos and 1 chatas to go around for everybody. So every Kohen is basically going to be getting a kazayas. So what is a Kohen going to do? Achila muetas. And by the way, this parallels the Korban Pesach din. Ochlini ma chulinu truma. So eat with it. Bring a chulin sandwich. Basar taiva. What's Rambam's going to mention? Why is it called basar taiva? It says ki te'aven nafshecha le'echol basar b'chol awat nafshecha tochal basar. If you have a hankering for meat, so you could eat non-sacrificial meat, right? That's basar taiva. So you take chulin and truma. The Kohanim could eat other things. Kedei shatia nechelet imha sova. It has to be eaten into satiety. This is the same din of Korban Pesach. It means if all you're getting is actually that, because that's what you paid whichever group who you get your manui for Korban Pesach. So you're actually buying a few grams of meat. Normally, even if you're not a Zolalan, what are you going to do? You normally have a lot more to eat. So you need something else to eat with your Korban Pesach. And by the way, that's what the Mishneh says. Sometimes the chagigas arba asar. Why is it there? So that they have more meat to go around. Right? More meat to go around at the Seder. There's a lot of meat to go around. The Kohanim, more than enough meat today. Then they do not eat secular food or truma with the korban, so that they're not forcing themselves. They stuff themselves with other things, and the achila gasa is lav shmei achila, right? If they have to choke down this 1 kazayas of chatos that they got, or ashram, whatever it is, that's wrong. The same thing applies to shari menachot. Shari menachot means the part of the meal offering that the Kohanim could eat, not the komets. So sometimes there's not a lot of Kohanim on duty. Sometimes there's a lot of bread to go around. So it's basically the mincha turns into a form of bread. Let's say the Kohanes cannot count on getting a lot of mincha today, right? So what is he going to do? Where's he going to get bread? So they bring in regular bread. Okay, they bring truma chulin chulin bread into the base mikdash or truma bread into the base mikdash, so that the kohanim have what to eat with which to eat their meat. Like I pointed out to the girls, the Rambam at the end of the positive commandments talks about these are the maximum commandments that a regular person could keep, a normal person could keep. Not everybody could keep all the positive commandments, right? In order to keep all the positive commandments of the Torah, you'd have to be a Sroel, and you have to be a Levi, and you have to be a Kohen and a Kohen Gadol, right? Is that possible? Obviously not. And you'd have to be a slave, and you have to own slaves, right? There's no way anybody could keep all the positive commandments. But the Rambam says, we assume a regular person will have a chance to keep a lot of the commandments, and that he behaves like a normal person, and he lives in the city. So you would have that, and he eats like a normal person. What does the Rambam define as normal human food? Dahainu, he eats bread and meat. Okay, that's how you be normal. Right? The Rambam's assumption. Wait a minute, Rambam, don't people eat fruits and vegetables also? Didn't you say in the beginning of the Mishneh Torah, which is written after Sefer Mitzvahs, he says that a person basically could fill his kreso with almonds and raisins. And the Rambam doesn't even talk about regular vegetables. The Rambam assumes, by the way, what? That eating things like cucumbers and carrots and lettuce didn't count. Those are just to flavor your bread and your meat. Yeah, of course, people eat vegetables, but that's not even remarkable, And the fact that you eat a few fruits is also not remarkable. The ikr of the food is meat and bread. Correct? This makes sense?
And insects.
Not insects, no. Unless it's locusts.
We discussed
but
that at the beginning of shit.
I think that this is misunderstood when it says in the introduction to the Ber Hagra, the Gra's children testify that he ate very sparsely. In the morning, he had a kibetza of bread, pas chareva, and a revius of mayim. Right? That was the Vilna Gaon's breakfast. That was his morning meal, and the evening he ate some more. Right?
Yeah, Yechidim get by on very little physical sustenance in order to maximize
and that he was a vegan all week long. Right? He was a vegan except when they said tachna. It doesn't mean that the Vilna Gaon literally just ate, crumpled the 2 slices of bread into a ball and made it the size of an egg and then ate it. If the Vilna Gaon ate a little bit of alfalfa sprouts or a drop of cucumber or a carrot or a radish, as it was, let's say you ate radishes, they wouldn't have even mentioned that because he's talking about what matters to them is the bread or the meat. So I would imagine that when the Vilna Gaon, even if he ate a little bit of, kitness also with his bread, that of course, he add a little bit of, beans or something, they wouldn't have mentioned that. But of course he ate some of that. Otherwise he would have died of malnutrition. Okay? So the vegetables just don't go mentioned. So I wonder how it was in charge of the Beis Mikdash, the food. We didn't read about all the officials they had in the Beis Mikdash. It doesn't say there was an official cook or one of the Kohanim was in charge of how the Kohanim eat this. Remember, it's a different Beis Av every day. We're going to read only that day's Beis Av got to eat. Right? They're the ones who were eating the Kudshei Kudshim. So basically, that they had to know each other, and they've given the Beis Mikdash kitchen, so to speak, and the cooking pots and the roasting areas. Here's Korban today. Figure them out amongst yourselves. You're all related. You all come from the same town. You're all, of the same clan. Figure out how you're going to prepare this food amongst yourselves so that you guys like it and you could eat it. Very interesting. Put your head, start thinking this through, the permutations. You can't cook a chatas or an asham with the muram. What's the muram? Those are the parts that you give to the kohanim of the toda or the el nazir. Toda is kache kalam. The toda is like a shlamim. It's going to go to the one who's bringing the korban and his invited friends, right? He's going to take it somewhere into Jerusalem. And he's going to eat it. There's a lot of food going around. The kohanim take a piece of that, and also the el nazir, the nazir's ram when he finishes his vow. So he's going to eat this aisle, this ram, but the kohanim get a piece too. So the kohanim shouldn't mix these two types of meat. The meat from the toda should not be cooked in the same pot with the meat from the chatas or the asham. Why? Because the chatas and asham are more limited in their rules about when they have to be eaten. They're kachei kachim. For example, the chatas can only be eaten where? In the azara, whereas the toda can be eaten anywhere in Jerusalem. So if you cook toda meat with a little bit of chatas, so now the chatas will govern that toda meat, and the toda meat has to be eaten in the azara also, like chatas. That's what Rambam says. Now you're limiting who can eat it. Where it can be eaten. If you cook some toda, you have, let's say, this pot is mostly korban toda meat. A little bit of chatas in there makes it that only kohanim can eat it, not just Yisraelim. And it makes it that it has to be eaten in Azara, like the chatas, and not anywhere in Jerusalem. So it's it's like the Chomer Shebahem. You have a chart there. Oh, that's interesting. Wonder what he says. What does he put in that chart also? Well, you don't have to put it in front. You just turn it sideways. What does the chart say? Tavlat Masavken Lalachazo. Yeah, it shows you who's limited. Okay, what each type of korban's limitation is. Right. V'lo murami mitodah ve'el nazir. You can't take the priestly portion from the Todah or the Nazir, the ram of the Nazir, with Bechor or Im Chazev Shok Shel Shlamim, with meat from the firstborn sacrifice. That's firstborn animal became sacrifice, or the breast and the foreleg. Sorry, that's the hind leg of the Shlamim. Why? Now you're saying that they have a limited time to eat. These things are eaten by the Kohanim, right? But the problem is some have less time to eat them. What's the Zman Achilatan? In this case, it's the what do you call it? The over here. I think they just have one day. Yeah, you're limited severely to just one day. Some korbanos, right? It's the day thereof and the night, and that's it. And some are you get a little bit of the next day also, right? Make sense? V'lo murami shlamim shel emesh. And you can't take the priestly portion of yesterday's shlamim. Remember that they have another day to eat it, right? That night and the next day. Im chatas v'asham shel yom, with today's chatas and asham. Why? Because now you're going to limit who can eat them, okay? And you're going to limit it to quantum. Once again, stick to this. Or uzman achilatan. You only have till the end of today. Yeah, and not the ensuing night. If you were to combine chatas and asham, so you could cook them together, because they're eaten by the same people in the same place at the same time. Todah ve'el nazir, and you mentioned before, why do you keep grouping Todah and El Nazir? Because once again, they have the same, population that could eat them, the same place they could be eaten, and the same time they could be eaten. And the same thing with Bechor Chazev Shok. Everything they have is in common, so they can be cooked together. And we could follow that chart over there. Let me read this chart. Thank God for Rabbi Makbili sending us these Rambams over here. See who could eat the chatas and asham? Zechrei Kahuna. That means males, male descendants of Aaron. Hamurami Natod ve'el Nazir is limited to Kohanim, and Bechor v'Shok, okay, that's also Kohanim. And the thing from the Shlamim, the priestly portion from the Shlamim yesterday could be eaten by the Kohanim and the people in the Shlamim. The Chatas and Asham have Yom V'Laila, one day, one night. Also, the Murim of El Nazir has Yom V'Laila. The Chor Chazev Shok and of the Shlamim have 2 days and the intervening night. And yesterday's Shlamim is kosher today, and it's going to be done at Shkia. Very interesting. Okay, so don't mix these things up, because you're going to have a problem. Something's going to be limited, what it is, and you might even bring it to a psul. Korban Pesach. So what does this teach us about Korban Pesach? Why didn't I mention Korban Pesach? Korban Pesach would also be a problem, because if you cook, let's say, shlamim of Yom Yadalid with Korban Pesach, you're limiting that Korban Pesach. No, it can't be eaten today. It can only be eaten at night. And it's only going to be allowed to Menuyim. Why do you mention that Korban Pesach being cooked with other things? Come on, this is a trick question. Why do you mention Korban Pesach, which has its own limitations? Korban Pesach is limited to Menuyim, and it's limited to Jerusalem as area. Its time is way different than all the other korbanos.
And it only can be roasted.
Because it's going to be roasted. There's no way really that you could roast Korban Pesach and somehow get it in the Sinas Tam with some other meat, unless you're like sticking them together somehow. But these other things he's talking about, bishul together in a pot, and Korban Pesach is not bashled in a pot, like that's used to say in yeshivish, right? Isn't that how you say bashled? It was cooked in a pot. So that was a trick.
I think you would say mavashel.
Mavashel, bushal. The past tense of
mavashel is not expecting too much.
Okay, so the past tense of something getting cooked is bushal. Korban Pesach shebushal, which was cooked, is puzzle. Okay, so that's we don't do that. Okay, it's a trick question. Chaticha shel kache kachim, o shel pigul or nothar. Let's say you have a piece of kache kachim, or some pigul or nosar. Nosar means it's beyond the time. That pigul means the kohen had the wrong thoughts when he processed it, so he ruined it. Where the thoughts, im he'acholya chel b'yom shlishi. he was planning to eat the meat on day number 3. Day 1 is the day it's slaughtered. Day 2 is the next day. Day 3 is 2 days hence. Well, so now he took a piece of kachikach and pigul or nosar, cooked it with other pieces of sacrificial meat. So those pieces of sacrificial meat are now forbidden to non-kohanim. But they can still be eaten by kohanim. All these things are things that can only be eaten by kohanim. So, but it can't be eaten by regular Jews. Basar koche kochim or basar kochim kalim. Let's say take meat of the most holy, patos nasham, or kochim kalim, the other sacrifices. Shnit basel in basar tava. It was cooked with regular meat, right? Regular chulin meat. Hare basar tava asur l'tmeim and mutar l'torim. So now this regular meat has sacrificial taste in it, so it can only be eaten by people who are pure, ritually pure, and not people who are ritually contaminated. Makes sense. Wow. Very important halachas. So don't mix these things up. By the way, you have to have special pots. If you're a Kohen, you're eating truma, you don't want to go to the Kohen's house. The Kohen sits down, has Shabbos meal for truma, so you can't take in yeshiva guys for Shabbos, random yeshiva guys, because they can't eat truma, right? So it's Kohanim will have to eat differently, separately from everybody else. Just like Talmidei Chachamim shouldn't be eating regular food with everybody else. So too, Kohanim can't just, they have to watch out what they're eating, and they certainly can't just feed their food to everybody else, right? The advantage of being what's the one advantage an Evet Kanani has over an Evet Ivri to a Kohen? Kohen owns an Evet Ivri and an Evet Kanani. What advantage does the Evet Kanani have? Yeah, the Evet Ivri is not Kinyan Guf for the Kohen, so the Evet Ivri can't eat truma. He's just working. He's just indentured. He has to work off a debt to the Kohen. But the Evet Kanani is mamish owned. Lo bahem ta'avodu. So just like the Kohen's animal, Kohen has a dog or a cat or a sheep as it will. So he could feed his animal his truma. So too he could feed his Evet Kanani his truma. So that's the advantage of being an Evet Kanani, right? I guess if you could call that an advantage. Nemar bo'olah or holah sheri kriv la kohen lo yichya. Says concerning the burnt offering, the skin of this burnt offering that he brought should go to the Kohen. We mentioned this before in the Klei HaMikdash. The Kohanim, they're entitled. We saw that there was a thing, the Avoda. And there's a big machlokes of the Parshanim based in the Gemara. What is the Rambam talking about? Is the Avoda the actual service of processing the Korban or eating of the Korban? Remember? Then we talked about the skin, how the skins of that day's Korbanos are divided among the base of, right? They're the ones who keep the skin. Animal skins, what's the point of giving out animal skins? Animal skins are a commodity. Animal skins are what you use to make clothing. A decent animal skin. Most importantly, you use animal skins for cloth, right? Tefillin, mezuzahs, Sifrei Torah, and Nevi'im, fine. And then, basically, all your shoes and sandals need to be made from leather, animal skin. And if you're all really buying it up so you can make winter coats, remember how they make anything as waterproof. You make a tent that's not supposed to, let water through. How do you make such a thing? Out of wool? Out of linen? Out of tarp, plastic, right? How would they make waterproof covers for anything in the olden days?
Make hides.
Hides, yeah, leather. Okay?
If they had enough hides, they could make tents out of it.
Yes, it's called the Olmoid. The Olmoid was made out of what? Orot Elim Adomim. Okay, so they used skins of ram skins dyed red.
They should call it the yurt of meeting.
What? The yurt of meeting? It's not a yurt though. It was rectangular.
Oh right.
Okay, it was rectangular. The point is
it's made of hides. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, the Machon Shilo had a waterproof ceiling. Okay, it was a tent. And Avram Avinu, when he was a nomad, he lived in a tent basically. I would assume that just like the Mishkan Shilo, it had had walls. Avram Avinu didn't always live in a tent. I would figure that if he lived in Hebron for a few decades, and he lived in Beersheba for a few decades, maybe he built a little bayis keva. But still, there was many points where they lived in tents. How did they survive in a tent during the winter? It snows sometimes here in Israel. It rains. How do you live in a tent in a place like Hebron or Beersheba? Even then, in December, it gets kind of cold and it rains. What would you live in?
Yeah, a mud brick house, probably, with a stove inside.
Okay, but I'm saying, but what was it, a tent? It means that they knew how to make a tent that was also pretty comfortable. We're talking about a very wealthy man here. So, there was a way that they did this. Okay. Let's see. says about the chatas that the kohen who's mechateh, okay, lechateh means to purify sometimes, to expunge, and it's also the verb that says the kohen who processes the chatas offering. So he's mechateh. This emphasizes my insistence that the translation of chatath with the dagesh and the tet is not a sin offering, because then there wouldn't be a dagesh and the tet. La chato, chata are all in forms that there's no dagesh and the tet. It's in the pa'al form, the simple form. And lechateh with the dagesh and the tet is a piel, just like the chatas itself. It means to purify from the sin. So the kohen who processes it should eat it. Now Rabbi Asham, it says about the guilt offering, la kohen asher chaper bo lo yeh. The kohen who is doing the kapar with this shall get it. It says about the shlamim, la kohen azorika dama shlamim lo yeh. For the kohen who throws the blood of the shlamim, it shall be his. Talking about the skin. The kohen who brings the mincha should eat the mincha. Wait a minute. So you would have thought, what is this pasuk telling you? If there's one kohen who processes the shlamim, so he should get the entire skin to himself. He gets the entire hide, right? The kohen who processes this mincha, all the entire isaron of this mincha, took a little bit out with the kometz and burnt down on fire. The kohen who then processes this mincha gets the entire loaf of bread or the entire fried whatever to himself, right? By the way, it's a heck of a lot of bread. I don't think a person could eat a whole isaron of bread in a sitting. We said an isaron is shir challah. That's 2.16 liters of flour according to the minimum opinion. Rav Chaim Naz said it's almost 2.5 liters of flour. And Chazon Ish would say it's a lot more. So a regular mincha is in isaron, right? 43.2 eggs worth of flour. So he's supposed to eat all of that himself? That's for him? Is that what the pasuk is saying? All these cases it says it should be his.
How much is one isaron?
Isaron is 2.16 liters of flour according to the minimum opinion.
Yeah,
so that's a lot. That's the minimal mincha. Okay, so what does it mean? No, it doesn't mean what I'm telling you. It means the kohen who could have processed it. It's divided among all the kohanim. The kohen who is fit to serve. That means all the ones who are on duty. They're wearing big day kahuna. They're pure that day. They're present. He's entitled to some of it. Okay, so it says here the kohen who processed the olah gets the skin. The kohen who did the chatas gets to eat the chatas. No, the chatas is shared of everybody. The kohen who processed the asham gets to eat the asham. The kohen who processed the shlamim gets to eat the shlamim. All the meat that goes to the kohanim from one shlamim, that's quite a lot of meat, goes to one kohen. No, and also a whole mincha goes to the kohen because he's the one who did the kmitza and the haktara. That's not what it means. It means he's qualified to get some. Umisha enu roi b'shada korban. Whoever was unfit to do the service when the service was actually done, kagon she'at tamei, the kohen was tamei, let's say, ein lo chelek lechol afilu kishi yitar la'erev. He gets no piece of this, even if he purifies himself by nighttime. Okay, it means that the right to eat of these sacrificial foods, or to obtain a piece of the skin, get rights to divide up among the skin, is for the kohanim who were on duty at the time the korban was made and were fit to serve. But it doesn't mean that one kohen gets the whole thing. Okay, I read this already. Chalukah, dividing things among the kohanim. Everything that's processed in the temple that day, all the meats and all the sacrifices and all the skins that are going to divide up at the end of the day, it goes to the base of that are working that day. Not even to the mishmar. The mishmar is, there's a 24 mishmaros kahuna, and each mishmar is divided into 7. Like I mentioned last week, Rabbi Dinar put out a schedule, tentative luach, of which Kohanic groups are going to be on duty in which week in the Beis HaMikdash this coming year. Yeah, he actually did that. So those Kohanic groups are going to have to divide into Batei Av.
Is it not 6?
Yeah, 6. You're right, because Shabbos it's all of them. Okay. They all divide up the Kadshei HaMikdash themselves. Ish ke'achiv. Okay. Each man like his brother, means one by one. Bein zeh she'ikriv, bein achiv she'imo b'mikdash shelo hikriv. The one who actually did the service or the one who was just watching, they both get to eat of the korban. They both get a share of let's say the skin. Let's say there's too much work to be done. There's not a lot of there's enough work to be done. They have a lot of kohanim who are just not going to be to do anything today. They didn't win the pious. They're not working. they'll still get a share, the fair share of the skins. So you see, there were 200 Kohanim on duty today. There was 50 Kohanim actually did something. So 150 Kohanim just did nothing. They didn't even sing because they're not Leviim, right? So these 150 Kohanim who didn't process any korbanos will still divide up the skins and the sacrificial meat and the menachos to eat when the time comes. Okay. Wait, so now the pasuk made a distinction between the minchas that are, let's say, baked and the minchas soles. Soles is, it's not made into a bread. They make it into a porridge. There's 4 ways they make rekikin or chalot. They bake those, or they fry it in 2 different ways: deep fried or pan fried, or a surface fry. And then they make soles. Soles is they take the, like the farina, and they make a porridge out of it. Basic mikdash porridge. That's a type of mincha. So why did the pasuk make this chiluk? Shari ba'afiyod hu omer kol mincha asher tiafeh batim or lakoina makriva talo tieh. Says any korban that is to be baked in the oven, it should go to the kohen who processed this, who brought it to the mizbeach. And then it says mincha soles hu omer v'chol mincha bulav hashem chariva. Any mincha that's mixed up with oil and dry, v'chol bnei Aaron tichya ish kachiv, should go to all the bnei Aaron ish kachiv. Okay, so it's a good question the Rambam's bring up. By the way, this is the Gemara's question, and the answer is sheha afuya. I don't know why over here Makbili not Korean. Machon Mamre has a halacha break over here. It starts a new halacha. See, you guys have a halacha there, Tesvav.
Mm-hmm.
So in Korean they connect the question with the answer with the question. Okay, when they actually come to divide the mincha, kol she'agil lo chelko afilu kazayif pat harehu ro'ilo sharei ochlo miad. He gets a piece of this mincha, a kazayis worth. That's what he gets, and he's supposed to eat it right away. Wait a minute, if they did this with soles, let's say here's a kazayis, a spoonful of soles. Okay, this guy's getting a handful of solet, or even less. Okay, his handful, molo kapo, doesn't mean a kmitza like this. He can't, in practice, then take the soles and mix it into a dough. It's not a significant amount that he can actually, it's worth baking, or to even bake it. Mm-hmm. This Kohen's getting so little of this particular mincha. Someone brought a mincha soles today, so every Kohen gets a spoonful. Right? You would have said, Hava amina, she'echalku mincha kedeged mincha. What's happening here? You would have said, wait a minute. So there's a few menachos today. I'm going to get a piece of this deep fried marcheshes thing, and a piece of this shallow fried thing in the machava, and a piece of rakik, patoto pitin, and a piece of challah from the menachos. And I'm going to get a little spoonful of, this. Why can I say that? You know what? Let's just give whole things. Instead of giving every single kohen a kazayas of every single mincha that was brought today, let's just say that there's 200 minchas going around and 200 kohanim. Each kohen will get one mincha. They all come out to Yisrael anyways. You'll get one fried marcheshes thing, and I'll get a fried on the machavas. You'll get one rakik. You'll get one challah. You'll get one bowl of soles. Right? That's how we'll divide it up. No, you can't do that. Not supposed to do that. It says, don't take this mincha, this one mincha, and divide it among every single member of the Beis Av. Remember I said if there's 200 men on duty, so you're going to divide each mincha into 200. They're going to put it out on the table, where the Kohanim go to eat, wherever it is. There's a big pot of kachin. So they put all the chatas and asham, they could cook all that together, that's fine. Every Kohen's getting a respectable amount. But there are 200 minchas today, or whatever number of minchas. Each mincha has to be divided into a number of pieces equal to the Kohanim who are on duty that day. They each get a piece. Okay? Okay? They have to do that this way. Each mincha is divided into enough pieces or portions for each Kohen on duty. So that's why the Chacham said, Ein cholki mincha keneged mincha. We couldn't have the ideal situation. 200 Kohanim, 200 different minachos. Every Kohen gets one mincha to himself, a nice respectable piece of bread. No, every mincha has to divide into 200 pieces, and every Kohen will get 200 pieces from 200 different minachos. Okay. Afilu baisa machvas keneged maisa machvas. We can't even say that. Wait a minute. They're all minachos fried the same way. Machvas is a flat pan, not deep fried. There are 200 machvas, 200 of the same mincha to go around. Give each kohen his own whole mincha. No, each of those has to be divided for 200. Oh, soleth keneged soleth. This offering of soleth, the cooked, the couscous-like mincha that's not baked into a loaf of bread. Ella koachat vachat cholkin shireh b'fnei atzma. Every single meal offering, it's shireha, the part that's to be eaten by the kohanim, is divided among itself. Okay, it itself is chopped up. Wow, that's kind of wild, and it's not considered respectable. By the way, it's a bizayon of the kachim to do this. Say, today I want, let's say, a challah, and you'll get a rakik, and tomorrow we'll switch, or whatever. Next time we're on duty, we'll switch. It's like doing business with the kachim. V'chein ein cholkin of keneged of. Can't do this either with the chatos that they eat. The chatos of means a bird, right? Really, how much meat is in a pigeon? Person brings a pigeon korban. How much meat is on there?
No, it's not a whole lot.
It's a single serving. Okay,
Yeah.
pigeon's something to eat on yontif. Okay, it's a single serve, a respectable thing. It's not meant to have too much there. Yoni, how much meat did we get out of the fish head? How much meat was in that fish head?
I personally didn't eat it, but I saw people eating.
Okay, there was a few kazesim of meat inside that fish head. Now, I understand how you're supposed to eat. It's just eat what are you supposed to do? Eat the skin, eat the bones. There was very little. We had 2 fish heads, right? Okay, there's still some in the freezer here if you want to take home a fish head. Okay, it's a segula. Velo chatas keneged chatas. No saying I'll take this chatas, you take that chatas. Velo chazeh v'shok keneged chazeh v'shok. Can't say I'll take this chazeh, you take this shok. He'll take that chazeh, he'll take this shok. Instead, each one of these sacrificial portions is cut up into many pieces. If there's one chazeh, so every kohen will get a piece, an equal piece of the chazeh. If there's a few kohanim, so they could get it, but let's say there's a lot of kohanim on duty and a lot of korbanos to go around. That means when the kohen takes his plate to go get it, he's going to get a kazayas or a spoonful of every single sacrificial food that was there. If there are many of them, many chazim, so he's going to get one piece each. Let's say he's a katan. What is a katan? That means a kohen who has not reached bar mitzvah. We could say, but then they had standards, right, that they wouldn't let a kohen work until a certain age, anyways. So wait a minute, why is it even a havamina that a katan could get some sacrificial food? Because it's zichrei kahuna, as we saw last week. Sometimes even the kohen's daughter gets a piece. The kohen's daughter's not serving, so the kohen's son is a valid kohen, just not old enough yet. So you could think that he could eat kachei kalim. Okay. He doesn't get He doesn't get a kohen Kohanic portion for the kachei kalim. Afal pishem mutar la'achilo kachei kachim. Okay, you could give the child kohen. He could eat a chatas and an asham, but you can't give him a piece of the kachei kalim. You can't give him the priestly part of, let's say, the shlamim. Part of a shlamim goes to the kohen. The kohanim aren't supposed to give that to the child kohen. V'chein isha androgynous, a woman or hermaphrodite, ein chokim lahem b'kachei hamikdash klal. You can't give them any part of the priestly portion of the meat. Shneimar ish ke'achiv, each man like his brother. It means those who are vadai men. Val Baal Mum, let's say a kohen is a Baal Mum who's there. What do the Baali Mum are still in the base of Mikdash? What's their job? They can't do the service. So what do? This is a test. What are the Baali Mum and Kohanim? What's their job in the base of Mikdash?
Support?
Well, in what way?
Well, they can. There's certain things they can eat, actually.
Now we're just saying that they can eat. Yes, they were about to say, but what is their job in the base of Mikdash?
What is their job?
Their job was to check the wood for bugs.
Oh.
Okay, debug and deworm the wood. Lahafliya. Okay, they're supposed to take, or latalea. Okay, whether this kohen has a temporary mum or a permanent mum, bein shnod b'mumo bein shayad tamim nifsal. Whether this something that developed after he was born or he was born with it, what's called a congenital mum, cholek v'ochel, he still is entitled also to priestly portions of food. And it says lechem elohav mikochei kodashim. So he eats of the bread of his God and for the kachei kachim, from the sacrificial meat, but he's not supposed to do the service. He has to be roy la'achila. What do you mean? What's roy la'achila? Means he has to be present, and has to be tahor. He has to be he can't be an orel. If he was, for example, impure, eno cholek lechol ha'arev. He cannot get a piece to eat later that night. Remember, a lot of the sacrificial portions, the Kohanim may not have sit down and eaten it that day. Instead, they are going to be eating it at night. Why is it important to eat meat at night? Because that's derech eretz. Bread is eaten in the morning, and meat is eaten at night, right? Who says that?
The Torah in Parashat Mishneh.
Well, yeah, okay. Well, Chazal said explicitly, said that's what Moshe Rabbeinu taught them. It says, okay, b'seis Hashem lachem basar ba'erev v'lechem ba'boker lispoah. So Moshe Rabbeinu is telling them derech eretz. Derech eretz is you have bread in the morning, and you eat meat at night. And by the way, yeah, that's the most. Even though there are some cultures where they eat like sausages and steak and things like that for breakfast, But Chazal said it's not derech eretz. If you have meat, you eat your meat at night. So it's a good kasha. The American style yeshivas, if they were going to be feeding fleishiks to their students, they did it at which meal? In the evening meal, right?
Oh,
That's what they do in Orson Welles.
More than Yotzei's that shita.
Okay, really? They give well, they do that. But you should know. Let's say the Hester yeshivas, if they're doing the fleishiks, they do it at lunch. You notice that? Yeah. And then it confuses the American guys when you're stuck on campus at at the Hester yeshiva, like where we were. So okay, good. You could eat a decent lunch. It's okay. But then it's night. They give you some burekas and some cottage cheese and a cucumber. It's
you
like
get chicken every night.
You get chicken. Okay, so you're fine. They feed you like a mensch, So that's more derech eretz, as all said, So that's proper. Pas boker. And by the way, they used to not have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's a very American idea. It used to be in the olden days. What they do, Chazal assumed. And also, it comes up in the Hilchot Matnos Aniyim and Shabbos and all that. The way we do on Shabbos, you have a morning meal. You don't just chow down first thing in the morning like a Talmud Chacham. A few hours of the day, that's when you have your meal, right? Your morning meal, and then later in the day you have your second meal. And there are many people who are health nuts who do this also. It's not good to be an American and eat American style 3 times a day. You're supposed to have one late morning meal and one early evening meal, and then you're good to go. That's the time. That's much more in tune with your biology. Okay. Some people around here do that, by the way. I think it's a good thing. I don't know. I eat lunch on the fly a little bit. It's only even tonight. I actually got to sit down a little bit at home and eat.
I could make do with animal meal.
Well, okay, yeah. When you're a young man, you can make many meals. Okay. Let's see here. V'chein kohen gadol ochel shelo b'chalukah ela notel kol ma sheyirtzeh. Kohen gadol doesn't have to do like this. What does it say about the certain services? Remember with the services, they used to have a system of dividing the services and getting around chadashim laktores, right? Make sure that everybody gets a chance to offer the ketores and everything else. They had a pious way of deciding who does what. But the Kohen Gadol could just overrule at any time he wants to say, I'm going to do this service. I'm going to do this, right? That was his privilege in the temple that God gave him. So too, the sacrificial foods, he takes as much as he wants. There are those who say, well, it's actually limited to half. Well, Lama Davar Doma, those who say it's to half, it says about the kings. When the Jewish army is victorious, that takes home spoils, how do they divide up the spoils? What's the halacha say?
Half of it goes to the Levi.
Yeah, no, half goes to the king. Okay?
The king.
Yeah, the king. There's a way the king makes his decision. He takes either this or that, but basically comes out 50% to the king and 50% to the soldiers, right? So they say there's a machlokas here how to interpret this Rambam over here. The Kohen Gadol takes everything he wants up to a half, or really could do it but he can't just take it and waste it. He can't say, oh, good, there's a whole chazan shok there. I'm going to take both of them. He can't possibly eat all of that himself. Just the point is he takes first, and he takes as much as he wants, and then the other kohanim have to basically give out kazayas to everybody else. Okay. We already said this. Anybody who's fit to eat of the kachim when the korban was offered, so he will be able to get a piece of it afterwards and eat it. You have to be qualified. Let's say he was not qualified to eat at that point. When the korban was being processed, he was disqualified. Okay? Even though now he's fit to serve, so we could eat whatever priestly portion is going to be divided up at the end of the day. He could eat some. He cannot. He doesn't know. He missed his chance to get a portion, to earn a right to the portion because he wasn't ready. Ketzad. Let's say he was a Tavul Yom. he became Tamid that day, and then he went to mikvah that day. Kohen Gadol, a seminal mission during the middle of the workday, and now he's gone to mikvah. And in the meantime, someone has brought a shlamim. So the Kohanim now have shlamim meat to eat. So he's not going to get a piece of that at the end of the day because he was disqualified from eating it during this time. Or is a mechusar kippurim. He had to bring some sort of sacrifice, like you mentioned before, in order to complete his purification. V'haonein biyom hakvura. Or he just had a close relative die and was buried that day. He's called an onein. Ben kohen gadol, ben kohen idiot, einan cholkin lechol erev. Even if he's the kohen gadol, if he's an onein, remember kohen gadol is an onein, continues to serve. He really shouldn't. He's disqualified to eat at that point because he can't eat the korban at that point. He won't get a piece of it later. And the other rule is that any kohen who right now can't eat for whatever reason, tuma right now, so he shouldn't be serving right now, except for chutzbi kohen gadol ha'onein. Kohen gadol is an onein. He can't eat now, but he can still serve. That was what happened to Aaron himself. I can't eat the chatas. V'chalti chatas hayom ha'yitav b'nei Hashem. But he still had to serve that day. So that was the day Nadav and Avihu died. Shehu oved ve'eno ochel. He serves, but he does not eat. Moshe B'Arna. We said this earlier in the Klei HaMikdash. The chol ish eino ro'i lavod. If you have any man, a kohen who's not fit to serve right now, eino ro'i lechol, so he's not fit to eat. Chutz bi balmum, except for balmum. He's not fit to serve, but he can still eat. And he earns a piece. Sharein parish bator, because it says that explicitly the pasuk in the Torah. This kohen is never fit to serve, but he will get a piece of the meat. Wow. Kol she'en lo chelik b'basar ein lo ba'al rot. And also, anybody who gets none of the meat because he's disqualified for whatever reason will not get a piece of the skins. By the way, did they just chop up every skin? That makes sense. So they take these whole hides and they say, well, there's 200 quantum on duty, so we'll see. This hide has an area. It's a meter and a half this way and a meter that way. So a meter and a half by meter is 1.1.5 square meters of leather, right?
Postage stamp.
What? So yeah. So they do that with the skins?
They probably have a rotation of
No, but
taking the whole skins, right?
No, the base of gets the whole skins. Basically, it's just the money that goes from the whole skins. They do not have to cut up the whole skins. We just saw it with the korbanos. Every single mincha, every single priestly portion of meat that comes out has to be divided up among the kohanim, right? So they have to cut into small pieces, or have to stew it and give everybody. I don't know if they make a big pot of cholent, so every kohen could get a bowl of cholent made out of the meat. But the skin, though, they don't have to cut it up. It means that they divided up the cash value of it because that would just make the skins useless. When you're tanning, you want to have the hides to be as large as you can so you can do many things. How do they make, by the way, you ever see the length? The mats they have of tefillin leather. Tefillin has straps. You go to the farm store, they have these big mats of tefillin strap. That's one whole piece, right? How long is that? They could, when you want to replace your straps for your tefillin, you take, a good few feet of that, right? If you're a head tefillin, to make the strap for a head tefillin, you have the circumference of your head over here, enough to tie a knot, and some hanging down here. That's like 2 meters worth, right? Is there any part of the cow or whatever animal they're using to make this leather that's that long?
The back.
The back is that long, but they make it straight. Like they have to curve it in. You know what I'm saying? There's no piece that has that long. Yet the leather is straight. They work the leather such that they could take something that there's no point on the cow that's even 6 feet long, maybe. Right? Maybe if you go from head all the way around the rear side up the bottom, so you get 12 feet. But you see that, yeah. So they stretch and they layer it out that they can make one long strap. The strap they have at this farm store, which is one whole piece, is 30 feet long, if not longer. Right? You see what I'm talking about, right? But there's a way to do it. That's how you make leather.
They also go along the diagonal, probably.
Okay, but either way, there's a limit to how you can do if you don't know how to process the leather. You see what I'm talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there is a way you have to do this. The point is, if you're going to be making leather, cloth, you want to keep the pieces as big as possible. To write a Sefer Torah, make a urea, right? That's a huge piece of cloth. So that's the belly of a cow. If you were to cut into pieces, you'd basically be ruining it, right? Fine.
The actual box itself, they usually make out of the neck because it's the strongest part.
Okay, well now when they make gassos, what allows us? Technology allows us to make gassos. Why couldn't they make gassos beforehand?
Because they didn't have hydraulic presses.
Yeah, it's the hydraulic press. Once you have hydraulics or other things similar to it now with modern technology, you could press the hard leather into tefillin into a shape. In the old days, you had to use softer leather in order to be able to make it into the shape you wanted. And
Like the Chofetz Chaim and the Ben Ish Chai didn't have the quality feeling we have today.
yes, or the Rambam for that matter. Yeah, we have what an age we live in. But then again, you know what they saw? This is something they tell you you're supposed to have 4 compartments in your shell roche, right? Is that something they really do a lot of the gassos? Someone was pointing out, really, they just make indentations. It's like one bias, and you see that on your shell roche, it's just 4 indentations, but it's not 4 actual spaces between the bottom. Do you notice that?
Yeah, except if you get charutzot are real.
Yeah, the charutzot, like you actually floss. So someone tried to say, like, the real hitter is not the usual gassos with the charitz, sorry, with the little indentation in there. You actually have to be able to put dental floss or whatever, or a wire between it.
Mine has those.
You got them?
Unfortunately, it has glue in between, but it is real.
It is real?
Yeah.
And when did you get them? Because this is like a newer thing that they're
I got
putting
them
out.
this year.
Yeah. Oh, you got new tefillin bottom this year?
Yeah.
Yeah, just for this hitter.
No. I want my dad offered to get me this feeling. So
Yeah.
I took the opportunity to make sure they were good.
So I remember the advertisements for them. You can actually look at the side. You can actually like see through them. You know?
Oh,
Gassos
no,
with
mine
charitz.
doesn't have that. It's
Yeah.
mine still has glue between, so glue is not as good apparently.
Okay, fine, because you glued it. Now it's like one piece. But the good charutzos, like you're saying, the advertisement is like you see like how sharp the picture is, and you actually see through like razor thin actual separations with the bottom, like it was originally.
Moshe Sternbuch says that getting that is a waste of money, but some others are. More
Okay, I can
for
understand,
it.
like,
the
many
Taimani rabbis tend to like it more.
Or the silk screen Torahs, which we haven't discussed yet. Heard about those?
Oh.
It's basically a printing Sifrei Torah. Who says you can't print a Sefer Torah? Normally, when you're writing on cloth, you do it by hand. But who says it has to be by hand? So Rabbi Abadi
with the dots, right?
Rabbi Abadi in Lakewood. Well, there's one way of printing it, but technically speaking, why can't you print? You can print others for him. You print your chumash on a printing press. So why not use some sort of printing press like technology on a cloth? And he sees that like al pi kabbalah, the main objections were al pi kabbalah. You have to do it biyad. The objections to the printed Sifrei Torah, which are many, by the way, and there's barely anybody who does this type, by the way. The objections that the way I felt about the printed Sifrei Torah when I first looked into it were basically similar to the objections to machine matzah.
We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. If you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.